4 of you. Oh, you're back down. You did for a brief moment there.
Oh, okay. But if Tracy comes back,
you'll be good.
Okay.
Yep, and you are live now, so it is 7:06.
7:06. Yes. Okay, so we'll call the call to order the meeting of the August meeting of the Environmental Board for Oneonta. I will hold on a second. We saw Tracy. In attendance are Council Member Mark Davies, Commissioner Keel, Commissioner Noling, Chair Kevin Schultz, and we expect Commissioner Allen momentarily. He was just here and dropped out. While we're waiting for Tracy, I guess I can ask, did anybody have any, other than Commissioner Hutchinson's comments on his spelling of his name, were there any other additions, deletions, additions to the minutes of, when was that? July 11th, July 14th, 2020.
I did have some comment on the what's under new business. And it says homeowners modifying city right-of-ways. I think we should add the context of, again, its relation to what we call the sidewalk strip or the tree issue. Because it kind of hangs out there, and right-of-ways, again, we kind of have this debate about what language even means. So
easement.
Sidewalk strip, or yeah.
It's easement.
It's an easement? I thought we decided this specifically was not one.
Nope.
So the property owner gives an easement to the city?
I talked to Steve Yearley, or emailed Steve Yearley.
But the more narrow question is, our concern is the sidewalk strip portion of the easement, not up into the yard so much.
Right, in between, specifically, I talked to him, I asked the space specifically between the sidewalk and the street. I see Dave Hutchinson is having trouble getting into your password.
Yep, I've replied to him. He should be.
Okay, fantastic, Carrie, thank you.
So if we could just have a little clarification on that in the minutes would be, even like some connection to the sidewalk or the tree issue, I think.
So I'm going to change that specifically to the space between the sidewalk and the road. How's that?
And modify, it's really about, are you planting or cutting in that strip, not so much modifying the right of way.
Yes, okay. So
modifying the right of way, I'm not sure who's doing what.
Okay, so homeowners planting or cutting, whoops. Homeowners planting or cutting trees on the property between the sidewalk and the road. How's that?
Perfect.
Okay, so we got that. So that amendment is Tracy's still not back. I feel like we're going to get some people in a moment, so I don't want to. Nope, and Tracy's back.
Kevin, with the rewording that Gina gave, does it sound as if we're only talking about planting trees there?
No, I have planting and removing.
But planting trees only, not planting bushes or gardens or anything like that. It's just trees.
Okay, I can change that to planting or cutting trees.
Cutting trees or planting. I mean, you could leave it planting without an object and just say planting until we figured out exactly what
planting or cutting
the issue is.
Trees.
No, it comes out the same thing as planting trees then.
Or other such. How about just trees, bushes, gardens, etc.
All right.
There we go. Now it reads, homeowners planting or cutting trees, bushes, gardens, etc. on the property between the sidewalk and the road. How's that? Is that better? They're just minutes.
It's
I think that captures more or less what we talked about.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Okay, so we've got that, and all right. Let's see. Okay, so with the with the minutes as changed, can we get a vote? Do we have a motion to?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, how many ayes do we have for approving these minutes?
Aye.
Okay, so everybody that is here. Okay, so moving on then. I don't have any. Did anybody have any petitioners or hear any? There's no petitioners in the waiting room or anything like that, it looks like. Did anybody receive any correspondence that they feel should come to our attention? I have not. Nope. Okay. Well, then that brings us to Mark. Any news you want to share?
Well, again, most of the business of the city has certainly been focused on purchases and on trying to cut budgets, and we're trying to also begin the development of the budget for next year. And so, at some point, I know Dave is always interested in trees being part of that budget. I think I need to have a conversation with him. But that might be one of those places that might be a tough argument right now, as we're really trying to begin to lock things down a little bit more as we move forward next year. So that's really been it. Again, I think that COVID has kind of interrupted the kind of normal flow of things that we're doing. We're getting back on track now, but it has really been pretty COVID focused in terms of anything that might interest this board that is environmental related. That's about it.
Okay.
Yeah, Kim, you're muted.
I just hit it. I went, just as an argument, just so you can be a little prickly with people that, climate change continues even during this, and investment in trees is a long-term investment that, the more you delay, not like missing a season or something. So fight the good fight for us, please.
Yeah, no, I certainly will. And, I think it's been pretty modest budget in the past. I mean, I think we're talking to the tune of $5,000. So I think we can certainly, again, I need to hear from Dave a little bit more about that, but we can try to push for that. Yeah.
Thanks.
So I'm just trying to review my notes and see if there's anything else that stands out that would be of interest. But no, it's all been, most of it's been dollars and cents focused and planning focused for the budget. So
We can also do things that don't cost money. So those might be improving building codes to having goals for tree planting and getting people not to cut down trees so much.
Looking
so
for that. I have some news on
things that don't cost money.
Yes.
Well, and so just before all of this started, the mayor kind of reconstituted I think we call it the Climate Smart Group. Kevin is part of that. I am as well. Stephen Yearley and Greg Mattice, the city engineer. But then, of course, this hit, and I can tell you that Greg and Stephen have been, incredibly busy. So this has probably been way down on the list. But that was one of the things that was. It was the board, environmental board, bringing the concerns about housing in terms of regulations to try to improve heating and windows and all the different things that we were talking about with rentals, trying to bring all that forward that prompted this recreation of this committee to be able to look into this. So hopefully we'll be able to do that soon. And I can certainly speak with Greg and see if we can move that along in the next couple of weeks and have a first meeting. And then I think I'd like to put that as an agenda item as well. So thanks for pointing that out again, Gina.
Great.
Any other questions or anything?
No. Okay. Well, then, thank you, Mark. So, community gardens, you have an update. Kim? Oh, you're muted again.
Try to keep that on. I don't have too much. I would say it's been a terrific season, and things are just growing. I know the steering committee, which met without me because I'm not on it anymore, met yesterday, but I haven't had any kind of report from them yet about what they may have decided. But they are working on at least one policy tweak they're hoping to get going this year. But I won't say more now because I don't know what they decided.
Have the critters been held at bay?
They seem to have.
Okay, because I know that there was some investment made
Sure.
last fall, right, to kind of dig a little bit deeper with the fence to try to keep groundhogs out. And
Right. That seems to be working. But,
okay.
you never want to be too cocky with these animals.
They're just trying to make ends meet too.
Right.
Okay, so nothing going there. Sounds good. Do we have, climate smart communities? We haven't going forward much on that, as Mark just talked about. Any news on Oneonta 2030? Is this still a thing that should be kept on the committee reports?
So Oneonta 2030 kind of became a catch-all for the many of the actions that were coming out of the 2030 plan, and that had to do with sustainability. I mean, it can certainly sit on there, and at some point the entire composting project got rolled into that, so that primarily became what it is. So it's certainly up to you whether you'd like to keep it on there or not. My hope is that other people might find 2030 projects exciting and want to adopt them and push them forward. So I guess it's not just limited to one person, but it could be, everybody on the board could certainly adopt things.
Okay, so maybe I know we looked at this a while back, but that was before Gina got here, and I'm sure Gina's aware of Oneonta 2030 was in there. But maybe this is something we might want to just come back to next month, look over the document and see if there's anything that's speaking out to us and what kind of time commitments we have, and think of it that way, perhaps.
Yeah, and I at one point, I would say maybe a year or 2 years ago, we actually went through and reviewed it and kind of checked what we had done, and it was kind of nice to see some of the progress. In fact, there's been quite a bit of progress on it, and then there were things that were underway. So yeah, I think a nice review of that at a meeting would be great, and then it might kick out some ideas on other places to be able to work, or it might also inform the work of the committee that the Climate Smart Committee that's working. So yeah, I think that could be good.
Excellent. All right. Speaking of the composting, has there been anything?
Unfortunately, the last we had any discussion of that was at the meeting that we had there in early March before all this started, and that I think has fallen off everyone's radar. I'll follow up on that this week to see if there's where we're at with anything.
Yeah, I kind of figured as much.
And Kevin, I would like to leave it on the docket. It's just been a guiding principle of ours for, I don't know, the past, it's been a while since we wrote it, and we periodically come back to it. So I would like to leave it on.
I have no problems doing it. I was just trying to get a feel for where we sat with it. And I think you're right. I think keeping it on there and maybe just using that as a way to sort of remind ourselves about what's going on there every once in a while. We just kind of go back to that, and maybe we have a discussion about an item that we feel that maybe could be looked at now on Oneonta 2030. Maybe that's how the report can go, is we can just kind of go down the bullet point list, if you will, and just have a little bit of a discussion about each of those items and see where we are. Maybe that is a way of both trying to move things forward and also just kind of keeping that guiding document in front of us rather than let it sort of drift away, as we have only 10 more years till 2030.
Well, on that point, and not to give everybody too much work, you could certainly reject this right as soon as I say it, but I always thought that there might be a need to come back and revisit the document now that we are 10 years away, and how might we look at this document differently? What might we be added? And maybe there's addendums that could be added onto this, because again, I think this was Tracy, help me out here. This must be 6, maybe even 7 years ago. Maybe it was not that long, but it was probably started about finalized. Yeah. So it's been a while.
It's more than that, Mark.
Yeah, right.
Wow, since we had the big kind of convention where we brought everybody together, and I have to go back through my notes, but it's been a long time. Yeah.
It certainly has been. Right,
But
Hannah.
it's worth going. It's worth leaving it there to help guide us. And I think it's a good idea to look back at, issues that we brought up there to see what we've accomplished. And there are some things on there that we still got quite a bit of work on. So.
Okay, so I will dig through. I'll see if I can find in my notes or in my email the last time we looked at 2030, because I seem to remember that we had a list where we actually checkmarked or commented on kind of what we thought the progress was. I'll look at that, and I'll try to get that out to everybody by the end of the week, and then so we can move forward on that.
Would you send a link to the document, please?
Sure.
Okay,
I will.
thanks.
All right. Okay, anything else on Oneonta 2030 or the climate smart communities? Okay, urban forest, we don't, Hutch isn't here. City plantings, Seal's not here. Okay. Community engagement, I have nothing extra to add. Does anybody know of any other things? The last time we spoke about this, we were talking about getting rid of some of the knotweed in the Oneonta Creek, which I now see I misspelled in that. Has anybody else heard anything else like that you want to report? Nope. Okay. So nothing there. Okay. Okay, so that brings us to old business. The first of the old business is beekeeping. And Gina, so I had a bunch of comments with the judge who had brought this before us, Brian. I don't remember his last name. And he found that there was not a whole lot of wording in most of the places that explicitly allow beekeeping. Oh, who do we have? Ah, there's Hutch. Hello there. You're muted, Hutch. Can I unmute you? You're fine. Okay. Carrie, can you unmute Hutch?
He's got privacy settings. There he goes.
Oh,
I sent a request for him, so.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Welcome, Hutch.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm an idiot.
No, that's okay. This is all weird and crazy. And if you've been...
No, but I've done it 100 times. I've done it many times. They wanted a personal password tonight for some unknown reason. I have no idea what it is for this device. I've got about 10 other passwords.
Well, that's all right. So we had just, Hutch, as you came in, we were just discussing the beginning of the old business on beekeeping. And I was just saying that our original petitioner did a search on New York State municipalities that have beekeeping on their records. None of them even talk about a setback. Maybe they register the bees. And I don't know if you saw it, Gina a few hours ago sent a very detailed set of laws from Pennsylvania as a way, because I can't remember, did I send the New York City bee
Yeah, I think you did a while back. I think you did, yeah.
Okay, because it was a little bit shorter. It basically, because even New York City, there's no concern about setbacks or notifying neighbors or anything like that. The New York City registration form requires the bees to be, the property to be a beekeeping property, I think every every year or every other year, I can't remember. And it tells you to encourage best practices, to go and get into contact with local beekeeping associations. I was also in conversation with somebody from the Binghamton Beekeeping Association. It was through their Facebook page, so I don't have a name for them. They were even more hands-off than that. I thought that would probably cause problems if we made it easier to have bees than chickens. Then people would say, why are the bees getting let off? Why not the chickens? So I guess that's kind of where that is. My personal preference is to have a little bit more in the way of along the lines of how we talked about chickens, just to keep things even. And I think what Gina sent out is pretty close to that. Maybe we can shorten it up a little bit.
Agree. I think that what Gina sent out is actually quite extensive, and maybe we don't need to go quite that far. But I think, like chickens, we'll get a lot of pushback. And so when we went through the chicken ordeal, we did, unless there were certain rules in place. This is really, it just doesn't. I mean, there's so much, bees really, they're not going to create much of a nuisance whatsoever. I mean, this stuff about being near swimming pools and things of that nature, but saying that they have to be 10 foot from somebody else's property will give somebody some peace of mind somewhere and make this process easier to push through, in my opinion. But I do like the idea that the less rules that we put on it, I mean, maybe that you have to report it and that you have to have one setback. I mean, something simple.
Right.
Is this our job to put the rules on? Isn't that code? Why don't we just tell them we think it's a good
We
idea?
recommended before.
Pardon? Beg your pardon?
We recommended before.
Yeah, we
We did the chickens, yeah.
I think that I certainly don't think that what we would be doing would be proposing code. I think what we'd be doing is proposing a model of code that just to make, because as Gina says, why reinvent the wheel? And if we've already put this work into looking up various codes and some ideas like this, I think it makes sense to present Common Council something to look at. Otherwise, my worry would be like, it's COVID, we got too much stuff going on. Let's
May I speak to this?
Yes, Gina.
So part of why I shared the Pennsylvania is because it raises things we haven't thought about.
Okay.
As well as showing us what, again, is recommended by the beekeepers in Pennsylvania anyway. But the questions of, do we want someone to register or have a permit? Those are questions, probably outside of our committee, but we might make a recommendation. The second thing they recommend is evidence of education in beekeeping.
Yeah.
The local leather stocking, which the petitioner is a member of, they produce a short course. So that could be very doable if we wanted to require that. Now, why would we require that? It might have to do with also the bee health. You want people to know what the heck they're doing before they do it. But whether that's onerous, we could at least discuss, right? The chicken versus the bee, nobody's afraid of chickens. Chickens make noise, bees people are afraid of. So it is slightly different, but so again, just to review it, and I apologize for sending that stuff at the last minute, doing my homework,
We appreciate just getting it.
No, it's good stuff.
The New York City form is sort of an honor system, and it fits. And New York seems to be more decentralized about it. But over time, maybe we would have a problem with too many hives on a particular property, and we would want to revisit maybe the detail that Pennsylvania has. But some middle ground, at least these fundamental questions about permit or registration and education of the beekeeper.
Am I right that we kind of got this idea of, I thought we got some stuff from Cornell, didn't we? I may be getting mixed up here, but I thought Cornell was very specific because the university had some beehives and they were not anxious to have their bees mixed with the other bees. I thought that's what this kind of going back to, but I mean, I think the stuff from Pennsylvania looked really good and sensible. And I mean, it was very long, but so what? It wasn't that big a deal. I mean, it's there, and I don't know where we would go from here. I almost think that we already said we support it as a committee, and we put it on the council, and I think it would almost, I mean, there aren't that many things in it. I mean, distance, 10 feet is what that one said, I think, for Pennsylvania, right? 10 feet from the neighbor coming back, and just seemed like we're making a mountain out of a molehill here. I mean, I don't think we have to get involved with this much, do we?
I'm worried if we don't put forth some, I mean, so that they understand that we understand the issue, they're not going to know it whatsoever. So if we don't at least put forth some thoughts, some ideas that they can mull over, I'm worried it'll just get tossed out. You know, no way it's going to be.
You feel, Mark, about going to Common Council with this?
I agree with Tracy. I think some kind of thought out, and I think that what Gina has offered here with the Pennsylvania guidelines, some kind of thought out guidelines, not to say this is what we want, it has to be this to a T, but to say, here's some of the things we've considered, we've done our research, here's what we're proposing. I think that coming from the environmental board would certainly be very helpful and beginning to at least frame the conversation and give the code enforcement office some direction in terms of creating this alongside with the city attorney. So I think that to have some kind of guidelines and some ideas already in play would be really helpful.
Well, if we sent stuff around to Common Council ahead of time, an email and showing what we're thinking of doing and sending it to David Mertzig, does that make sense before a council meeting?
No, I would not advise that. What
Okay,
I would say is that we would want to take this to the legislative committee first, so that having some kind of framing of this, I can certainly bring it there. Anybody is certainly welcome to be there as well and to talk about this. But I think bringing it forward to them and having them consider it and do what they want to do with it. Then if they like the proposal, if they think that it's covered enough area and it really, that it addresses everything that's important, they would then bring it to Common Council themselves.
But we would present them something on a paper, though. Wouldn't we give them something on paper so they've got something concrete to look at?
I think having at least a foundation to begin working from would be very important.
Right. So that was what we talked about the last meeting, was that we would try to come up with some things that we thought were important, maybe look for some legislation. It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of city codes in the state of New York. When I went, and so the idea was that we'd have something that we bring to the proper committee that would be looking at writing up the code, and that would be where we're done. But the idea is that if we can give people a framework, make their jobs a little bit easier. I went back and I looked up, I saw some of the news from the when Common Council looked at chickens, and that seemed to be a very drawn out affair for chickens. And I think Gina makes an excellent point that people are not typically afraid of chickens. They might be annoyed at them.
Well, no roosters, of course, came out. Yeah, zero roosters. No.
So okay. So I think then my suggestion then would be that we, I guess through Mark, or through, I guess I could do it as the chair. I can, or maybe through Mark as the council representative, bring up a document saying, we support the keeping of bees. We have seen that there has been very little, that most cities do not have much in the way of ordinances in New York State, but we found this particular set of code from Pennsylvania that we thought was not too onerous. These are the parts that we think are the most important. Maybe the 10-foot setback, registering the property, things that we think we might want to keep in there, but are not necessarily as essential. Might be something like the keeping
Training.
The training, exactly. And if there's something else, and that way there we can say, here are the things that we think are most important. Here are the things that we think, these would be pretty good, but you know what? We're not gonna.
Yeah.
We can get around this some other way.
I'll be glad to help somebody. I don't want to do it myself, but I'll be happy to sit down if we can Xerox what we got out of Pennsylvania and strike out what we don't want.
Copy and paste,
Yeah, I have the document, that Gina sent, I can just edit that. I'll take out the bits that we've talked about that seem the most relevant, and we'll just give them the whole code so they can see how it looks. And then we can say, out of this, here's the executive summary, if you will.
I don't recall how many halves were allowed in the document, but certainly no more than 1 or 2 at the most halves. There's just no reason for a city resident to have more than a couple of halves at the most, I would think.
Right. Most city lots seem not to be like yes, Gina.
The what we're talking about is not the full-on bee city, which was mentioned before, but there's also bee campus. We might not want to do something that would preclude the campuses from being a bee campus with multi-hives. So we might put an exception, or we might have to think about an institutional sized.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's the point, Gina. Because wouldn't it be nice to have them on campus? I mean,
or at the camp, or
acreage, right?
Yeah, Mark.
Yeah, so that was, I'm looking at now, it actually is interesting. It has a square foot. So square foot equals 2 hives for each additional 2,000 square feet, 2 additional hives. So that's an interesting kind of moving scale based on the size of the property, which I think would address what you're both saying, that both colleges or maybe even other institutions could consider having them if they have a larger footprint.
That's because that's where I was thinking, was trying to find, and I thought I had seen it in there, but I had been thinking, why not have it a scale? Like, properties up to this size, you have whatever it is, 2, and then you go up, and then that deals with that. That again might be something that we just talk about in here's what we'd like to see, that we can have it be that most city properties are pretty small, and so we recognize that most would only have 1 or 2 hives or whatever it is, but we recognize that some properties in the schools are bigger, and maybe we might want to talk about that.
Yeah,
okay.
Go ahead.
So Kim, then Tracy, and then Gina.
I'm very supportive of beekeeping. I wished I'd done it a long time ago, but I'm also interested. I'm sorry, Gina, I didn't see your thing till 5 minutes before the meeting, but is there anything in there for beekeepers having any kind of obligation to improve the environment for others, as in plant and their bees by planting flowers or something? Because the one thing I have read in cities that are keeping bees, that it's not, honeybee is a non-native species, and they tend to crowd out the native bees, which is something maybe the board would like to look at as a different project, maybe of encouraging the little native bee nests, or encouraging the beekeeper to plant some extra flowers, because they're not going to be many beekeepers in Oneonta. They probably are not going to crowd out the native bees, but there is this kind of delicate balance that as an environmental board, we should, I think, at least acknowledge that we have native bees here too that can be choked out by honeybees. I don't think they will be in this case, because as I said, unless you start getting the college campus creating a beekeeping colony, that might be different. But Jean, is there anything in the Penn State, the Pennsylvania one, about planting anything to,
I think Tracy was first, but then I can comment on that.
No, go ahead.
It's not in the Pennsylvania one. It is in the Bee City. That's their model. And it really is something different, which is about that you commit to creating habitat, which the city can consider, and also that you have city policies that are pollinator friendly, including plantings. So it might be a way to connect to the garden priorities. That's also something that the campus would be interested in. Can we plant more natives and attract and help create habitat? But that's for native bees. So that's a longer term thing.
Yeah.
Maybe I can mow my yard less. No.
Please do.
That's my excuse for never mowing the lawn.
We want grass-eating bees.
There we go.
Stock grass-eating bees.
Okay, so this sounds good. So I think that so I will try to extract out some of these things from that Pennsylvania law. I'll take out some parts of the Bee City as parts of things to consider. Some of this discussion feeds into what I was going to talk about new business, but that new business in terms of public education also ties into our other bit of old business. So I think that, so I'll hold off on that. Aside from the kind of educational aspect and trying to get the community to think about making a pollinator-friendly city, about making sure that we don't crowd out the native. To me, that sort of it falls under kind of an educational rubric. Are there any other things that we feel should be at the forefront or that we haven't covered in terms of things that are important for the nuts and bolts of beekeeping?
It's on your lap, in your lap.
All right.
Oh,
So-
one thing,
Yes.
sorry. One could, again, the Pennsylvania thing does have zoning, so if there's another committee that does zoning, there would be a friendly sharing, perhaps, of something we put forward.
Okay.
The nuisance part, so it might be more about we share what we're putting forward to show that
Okay.
we're trying to coordinate.
Okay.
I mean, the ordinance can always be changed, can't it? I mean, if we find it isn't not working, we can go back and,
Well, I mean, at
In
this
the
point, we're
future?
not even talking about an ordinance. I'm just trying to get enough stuff together that so somebody.
no, but I mean, I guess it has to be, doesn't it? It's going to be in the code, and we've got the word bees in the code now. One quick thing is delete the word bees out of the code. It's not
Well,
the code, apparently, specifying the animals and bees.
right. That, I mean, that would be the most minimalist, and based on some people that I've talked to who are bee enthusiasts, that they would be most happy if we just did that. I don't think that that makes the most sense.
Yeah, no, that's just,
Um,
as I call it, yeah.
Okay, so we can come back to this if anybody comes up with anything, or again, email is also pretty good there. The other bit of old business that we had was this conversation about homeowners planting or cutting trees, bushes, gardens, etc. On that property. And I wrote to Stephen Yearley, and he calls it an easement. So he says the city easement is a right-of-way. The city controls that section of land. However, the property owner is required to mow it. The city of Oneonta maintains the trees within that right-of-way because technically the city owns the trees located in the right-of-way. If you plant a tree in that right-of-way, it essentially becomes a donation to the city.
Ah.
So in a nutshell, residents are not allowed to damage or remove trees within the right-of-way. Any trees that are planted in the right-of-way are technically city property, and damaging them is the same as damaging any city property. Obviously, exceptions exist in regard to NYSEG limbing trees, and so on. And he referenced, without my prompting, he referenced the very issue that prompted all of this. So I don't think we need to do anything further on that. Let's see. I just want to check something before I can see if they are working on a code update where tree management is front and center, or maybe not front and center, but is huge.
Really?
So I'm not sure. I don't see why it wouldn't be why I couldn't say this. But yeah, basically it is about how to replace trees, what trees are acceptable. There already are a set of trees. If you go and look at the city code, there are a bunch of trees that we've already discussed, like willows and so on, that you can't plant. Again, trees in the code say something about 12 feet, have to have no limbs below 12 feet above sidewalks and things like that. So I think at this point, my argument is that I think that there's established protocol. I think the biggest problem is educating the public about what can and can't be done, which is why I have the new business that I mentioned. And so I don't think, I got my impression from Steve Yearley is that we don't really need to do anything on this.
I would agree, yeah. I mean, in the last 15, 20 years that the environmental board has been involved with planting trees with engineering. The only we had one person that said they did not want us to plant a tree in the meeting in front of their house, and we did not. It happened to be the former mayor, Albert Mayor Nader was John's father, and anyhow, that's a long story. But that's the only time we've had anyone say, "I don't want a tree." I think we put trees down, and people that don't like them just cut them down, back them off, and that's literally illegal. But if they do it, they do it, and we don't usually try to put another tree back in there again. But some people don't like them. The doors. I mean, I know we're talking. I think you're right. I don't think we have to do anything. Somebody was talking about people that are putting gardens in. Maybe it was Kim. I'm not sure that people were planting flowers in their median, and I don't know. I'm not overly upset, frankly. I don't know. If it gets to be too bad, then we need to do something about it. Do you think it's out of line, Kim?
Well, no, I wasn't concerned about a flower here and there. I've done that myself, I guess. But it was the raised beds with the timbers and things like that I was wondering what the downstream consequences would be in a year or two on those. But
has there been much of that? I haven't noticed it.
Couple places.
Well, I think that if that became a problem, that would be under code enforcement, and they would say, "Thank you, your gift is no longer wanted. You can remove this, or we can remove it."
Yeah.
Would be my guess is how that would work.
Kevin?
Yes, Gina.
Did Dave receive a formal inquiry or informal that needs to be responded to from the homeowner?
Stephen has Yearly has said that it has been resolved.
Sweet.
And that the trees are not to be removed.
Sweet.
What's this on the oak tree? You're talking about the oak tree stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't heard nothing at all about it. So,
no, that has been, according to Stephen Yearly, that has been resolved.
He talked to the guy apparently, right?
It just has been resolved.
I didn't know because I sent a letter out to many people, including him, saying that it would be setting a bad precedent, and I never heard back from anybody really. I don't really care.
So,
it sounds like it's over. Yeah, he won't cut any more down.
No. So look for some new zoning about trees and tree maintenance. I think it's going to. If you want more details, you can email Steve or you can email me.
Who's on that committee? Is it?
I don't know. This was just a conversation that I had with him, and so it's in the code update. So presumably that has been that is probably public knowledge somewhere.
Engineering must be involved with that too. That's the trees have been more their bailiwick. They're the ones that have the budget to order, et cetera, et cetera. So.
So
move on. Yeah.
Do we have any other concerns regarding specifically that idea of the easement and so on? I think it's interesting to see that the city considers it a gift. And once it is a gift, there are no takebacks. So
no, it's got to be that way. It's the only common sense way to go. If we put a tree in the front yard, that's a gift the city's giving the tree, much to the consternation of the city attorney. Anyhow, that's apparently what the deal is there.
So then that brings me to this idea that I had about this, and this is something that I've talked. I thought about when I first joined this board, and then we got sidetracked with, I think, the rail yards and stuff. What I'm interested in thinking about is how the environmental board, how this board can actually be more proactive in terms of educating our citizens about environmental things. So one thing that came out of, and Gina, you probably saw some of this too when you're looking around, that education, and Tracy, I think we talked about the last time as well. Education is really the key thing if we want to get beekeeping into a city and have it grow. We need to educate people about why it's a good thing. We need to educate people how it's safe and what good beekeeping practices might be. We might want to talk about things like what are good trees to plant. And then we have that before you dig, you call so-and-so. Well, before you cut down, realize that what these trees are. And so I'm wondering, one thing that kind of came to mind would be some sort of, not just social media, we're making little posters, but actually putting them up in maybe in local restaurants, Main Street, places like that where we can see it. And would be, at first I thought, oh, well, we can get people with the colleges, the art departments of the colleges doing it. And I think in a side conversation with Mark, he said, why not make it a contest? Why not, maybe what we could think about is we could think of, here are the heroes, if you're talking about bees, right? Here are the 5 things about bees that we want the population to know. Go and make a poster about this. And then, we can have, I don't know, then the winner gets that and we can post it, or all entries do this. And that way we get more people, coming in. We can get all sorts of different kinds of posters. I don't know how to run that. That's just some ideas that I'm tossing out here for you guys to tell me if it's stupid or how maybe to go forward. But I think we can do, one thing we could do better on this board is to do some more outreach.
I would say communication a little more broadly than education, because how we communicate with people really makes a difference, not just sort of, here are the facts, but ways in which it's fun, or it touches into things that they care about, their experiences, their values. So Destination Oneonta does that for the city in some ways, but I like the idea of trying to include the colleges to make it, or the K-12 if it's a contest for middle school or something.
Or the library.
Yeah. Working with partner.
It's always tough to get these things going, I mean, the students get so wrapped up and the faculty get so wrapped up in the 2 colleges. It's a good idea. I'm not knocking the idea down. It's just that, years ago when they talked about the wood burning plant, Common Council did not have time to talk about it. And so we on the environmental board decided, let's have people come in from the outside and lecture to us about it. And that was very successful. But we kind of had a major topic there. And I guess nobody else seemed to be picking the ball up. So I think the environmental board said, wait a minute, if they're going to put a wood burning plant at the same level of the 2 colleges with a smokestack, that's something the environmental board's got to stick their nose in. And we did. But that was a whole nother ball game. But I don't know, just for a general theme, I don't know. What comes to my mind, there's a lot of discussion in the email. I don't know if you guys are tuned into that email stuff at all. With Sustainable.Sego and Dennis Higgins and Kosminski, but the pipeline stuff and people and Kevin Schultz, these are all people that are smart people and are good in their comments. They're not sniping each other. But it's, to me, the more I'm hearing this stuff recently, nuclear plants have got to come in. That's what I've been in the last several weeks, as much as one might not like nuclear, but if we want to meet the goals of the governor and the state, the CPLPPCQRX2, the thing is supposed to happen in the next year or 2. It ain't going to happen. We don't have the new power to do it. It might be something to talk about that. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out.
Well, I'm thinking, for right now, one of the things that that we've been focusing on, the sort of the big thing, kind of the holdover from like last summer with the rail yards and things like that. We're kind of big picture, and I think when we think about environmental ideas, we need to think. I kind of started taking the environmental justice sort of way from the EPA. Of the environment is the place where you work, you play, and you live, and so I see things like education about what are proper trees. Even just simpler things, or the importance of planting a tree, or if you cut down a tree, replace a tree, or why you might want to have bees, or if you don't want to have bees, why you might want to have what is a pollinating garden, or and I think that having talks is fantastic. God knows I live by them, right? I give a bunch of them, but I also think, as Gina said, communication is also important. How we communicate, and maybe having things that are a little bit more community buy-in, having, I like the word partnership with the school system. You know, we can get, I mean, look at the Green Toad, right? The art classes from Valley View. They put their art up along there, right? And so, and you see that all over the place. And so I'm thinking maybe that's how we can do that, right? It doesn't have, we don't have to be always beating them over the head with, like, climate change. We can't have any more, gas. Well, no, we can't. But there's also a lot of other things that we need to do to have a sustainable environment where we can live, work, and play. And I think beekeeping and flowers and trees and other things that kind of come up there that we even things like caulking your windows or something like that, right? Or although I'm getting away from those kinds of ideas, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. Yeah,
appropriate waste management.
Exactly.
Not polluting our waters. Yeah.
Exactly. Go back to what we were talking about when we had the folks from Casella and the waste management, right? How much stuff can't be, maybe we can partner with them too, as in terms of working on some of the things that they're trying to get out. Like, here, we can't recycle these things, right? If there is a piece of metal attached to your glass jar, that's not going to work anymore, or ever, right? And so that's just kind of the things. There seems to be, there's things that we've talked about over the years that are great. People can give talks or whatever, but when you give a talk, there's only like 10 people there. And if I give a second talk, it's another 10 people, 7 of which came to the last one, and are mad that the climate's still the way it is. Right? Whereas if we can kind of think of a way of doing this, and if we open it up to schools and the library and getting, kids and adults creating these posters or social media posts that we can put on there if we don't have the printing cost money, then they are part of it. We're a part of it. People are going to be looking at it. And I think we might be able to get more, we might be better at communicating. Yes, Kim.
Yeah, I like what you're saying, Kevin, and I sort of see this continuum between what Dave's talking about, the really controversial big issues that have to do with, what used to be fracking, the gas, whatever, all the different things that people get really hot under the collar on and create a lot of adult controversy. But then on the other end, the side that you're talking about, that are serious issues too, where the community can feel positive instead of just reacting against something, fighting with each other about it. And I think that would be helpful. And I think some of the better publicity you get around town is when people do something and then it's covered in the media, because not that many people read the Daily Star, I'm sure, but we all get the free paper, and when a scout has a project, an Eagle project, you see about it. Sometimes they need a little more help with it than they got to get started, and it may not be successful. But I think some of those things could really, you could attach to groups that take responsibility to do some of the things you're talking about. I would say that there was an attempt to run a contest this summer with the teen group at I guess they meet at the Armory.
Yeah.
For the downtown thing. And I think right now people are so stressed out that even when they're not busy in the summer, I think it's hard to get buy-in without some kind of organizational pressure or some incentive system. And it was a contest they were trying to run and they got absolutely no entries. But the idea had been to take the winners and use the electronic bulletin boards around town, to show the different entries so that they would actually get a lot of visibility. And I think that there was some buy-in by the owner there. So there are some interesting means of letting people know that are not conventional and are not social media, in addition to the old media that I mentioned at the beginning. But part of it is getting, the kinds of things that are not the most controversial, but that people need to think about. As you said, what trees to go in, what gardens to go in, go out, and waste stream, which I think is really important. I thought today, how much of the PPE I haven't looked up what is happening to the plastic waste stream because of those disposable masks, because
it's pretty bad.
I imagine it's going to be awful, you know? So,
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I think that I saw that competition or that thing for the teen center,
mhm.
and it's disappointing that it didn't get any traction. And that's why I started to think more about K-12 and through the schools and through the library. Particularly the library. And if I had thought about this earlier enough, even though they were still adjusting this summer, the library has a bunch of adult groups that meet. The library has a bunch of children groups at different levels. There's the STEM group that meets, the Minecraft group that meets pretty much year round. There are the reading sessions that have obviously gone online. It's not quite the same. And now that the schools they're going to be busy the next month or two. But it might not hurt to, now that there's a sense of how we're going to move forward, even if we don't know how it's going to look exactly. It's not quite in the same reaction mode as in the spring when we were all just everything shutting down. And it might not be a bad idea for me to contact some people at the middle school and high school and see if their art clubs might be interested, or their environmental clubs. I think the middle school might have an environmental club that is, yes, Gina.
Janice LeBrew at Oneonta runs the environmental club.
Okay.
LeBrew.
Okay. And so does anybody have a problem with me just at least reaching out and kind of getting some ideas how they might, if they were to partner with us, how they might feel comfortable doing that? I'm not going to try to set up a whole big scheme right now.
Sure, no, we'll check it out.
But
I've got to shut it. The windows are
yeah, no,
I'll be right back.
The 8 o'clock storm is here. It's apparently now a daily event.
Kevin, we also have the Science Discovery Center and Doug Riley, who always is doing programming with the schools as well.
Okay.
Yeah, if we could work with Doug, I mean, I think that would be a great idea. We do a lot of programming. We've moved everything now to obviously online. There will be no visitors to the Science Discovery Center. Yet we will have continuation of the programming of varying types. So we're looking to reach out to community. So maybe that would be a good place to start.
That's what I was kind of thinking. What Mark and I also sort of talked about is that people are trying to look for something to do. And now that we know that we're all going to be online and that's how it's going to be, what kinds of things can we use to bring our community together and do this? So, okay, so I will reach out to the high school. I will talk to some of the science teachers at the middle school and see if there is an environmental club, if that's off the ground. I'll talk to Tina at the library and just say, here are some of the things that we've talked about that we feel maybe we want to have some education. We're thinking of trying to get people to make posters or something. And what are your thoughts? How might this work? How might this tie into your own outreach programs? And then
videos.
Videos, TikTok videos. There we go.
Well,
yeah, there you go. Right.
Until
how are your dancing skills?
My dancing skills are just fine, Hutch. For 30 years ago, I don't. That's your TikTok hand motion thing.
We could teach him how to do the whatever. I can't even think of it. Yeah. Anyhow, moving right along.
So
that's fine if you want to get involved with that. I have no problem. Sure, it's education. How
would anybody else want to be to work on with me? I mean, I'll get it started, but I mean, if this is something,
I will help you.
Oh, thank you.
Right. No, just an aside, very personal. Does anybody know who teaches geology up at the high school? I'm way beyond. Does anybody know who's up there doing geology at the high school? You mentioned.
Yeah.
Never. Go ahead. That's right.
I do. I have, because he adjuncts for some. I know.
Pardon?
Look. Yeah, I forget his name. I have to look it up. But I can.
Samples I've got to get rid of one of these days. Between Hartwick, Suco, and wherever, a few tons.
I know Lisa Michut sometimes teaches. She teaches.
She did years ago. She's okay. Yeah, thank you. That helps. I forgot her name. Yeah.
Is it David Morrell?
That might be it.
I didn't get that.
Physics.
David
I can find out. Yeah, I think he teaches physics actually.
They have the coolest thing now in the earth science that they built. It was a big sandbox with a projector over it, and with the Xbox connects to it. And so as you move the sand into little mountains and valleys, it reads the heights,
Cool.
digitizes it, and creates a map, a contour map that it then projects onto the sand in
Wow,
real
the
time.
high school has this?
Yeah.
In high school. Cool.
Yeah, and as you move the sand around, the map changes.
Yeah.
Well, we will have one in the Science Discovery Center. That's one of our exhibits that we're setting up next semester.
Oh,
Yes, an AI
Very good.
sandbox.
they're pretty neat.
They're
Okay,
really cool.
so I think that's all I have. Does anybody have anything else they want to add?
Let me just I guess I missed the early, I know I missed the early part. I think you guys, I think I mailed all of you the information that we will be getting 20 elm trees in 2 years, not in 2020, 2022. Did you, I don't think, these were ordered, George ordered them. I guess I probably suggested it to George, and he went ahead and ordered 20 elm trees that are still growing at the Elm Research Institute in New Hampshire.
Wow.
We paid, I think it was $146 per tree, and we bought 20 of them, and I've got already paid for. And I sent this to a lot of people, maybe you, Kevin, I don't know, maybe not everybody on the environmental board, but I was not aware that we actually had purchased them, but we did. We paid for them, and there was over $2,000 that we paid for them, which I could care less about. But just so you're aware of this, we will be getting 20 elms. These are ones that are disease resistant. We also purchased 3 of these 2 or 3 years ago. 2 of them are now growing quite well. If you go walk past the YMCA to the corner of Walnut, there are 2 elm trees there that came from the same place. It's that corner, the southeast corner of Walnut and Ford. And there's also another one, I think it must be 31 Elm Street. We put another elm there. So we should be looking as a group, places to put these elms when they get here. They'll be nice trees. So I'm just throwing that out. I wanted people to be aware of the fact we're getting that, okay?
Do they need help planting them, Dave?
Oh, in 2 years, I'm not going to worry about it. Yeah, probably. Yeah, we can get, I'm not worried about that. Yeah, they're about the standard size. They're going to be about 10 to 12 feet high.
Oh, big.
Caliper, about 2-inch caliper on them. So, you know, but no, yeah, definitely at some point in time, if you know of people, I'll be back to ask you.
All right. Sounds good.
All right.
All right. Well, nothing else. We finished the agenda. So I will call this meeting at a close at 8:09 p.m.
All right.
Things go faster on Zoom.